The room buzzed with speculation, but the mood was dismissive. To most, this was just another Japanese economy car, cheap, forgettable, and no threat to the American giants. The headlines the next day called it a middle-priced sports car, not a rival. Yet behind the scenes, Yutaka Katayama, Nissan's US president, saw something different. He argued that the 240Z would complete Nissan's American lineup and open a new chapter for the brand. Nissan's own internal target, 3,000 units per month, seemed bold, even to their own planners, but Katayama's conviction stood in stark contrast to Detroit's skepticism, setting up a collision between confidence and complacency that would soon play out in showrooms across America. Underneath the surface-level skepticism, the Datsun 240Z delivered a package that stood apart from anything Detroit or Europe was offering at its price. At its heart was a 2.4-liter inline-six engine, producing roughly 150 horsepower, numbers that put it squarely in the territory of far more expensive European sports cars. The car could reach 60 miles per hour in just over 8 seconds, a figure that matched or beat many rivals costing thousands more. Yet the 240Z's base price was set at $3,526, making it accessible to a new generation of American drivers who had only dreamed of owning a true sports coupe. Design was another area where the car defied expectations. The long hood, short deck silhouette echoed the proportions of Ferraris and Jaguars, but the 240Z was no mere copy. Its fastback roofline and clean lines gave it a modern, purposeful look that drew attention in any showroom. Beneath that styling, the car's independent suspension and balanced chassis delivered handling that rivaled the best from BMW, nimble, responsive, and confidence-inspiring on winding roads. Reliability, often the Achilles heel of European competitors, became one of the 240Z's strongest selling points. Period road tests praised its mechanical durability, with owners reporting few serious issues even after years of regular use. Compared to the frequent electrical gremlins of Alfa Romeo or the costly upkeep of a Porsche, the Datsun offered peace of mind as well as performance. For buyers, the 240Z was not a compromise between price and quality. It was proof that sharp styling, strong performance, and dependable engineering could come together in a single, affordable package. Dealers across the United States began fielding calls before the first shipments even arrived. By the end of 1970, waiting lists had become a fixture at Datsun showrooms from Los Angeles to New York. Customers put down deposits and then waited, sometimes for months, hoping their name would come up before the next batch sold out. The demand wasn't a short-lived spike, it was relentless. In 1971, United States sales reached 33,684 cars, a number that stunned both Detroit and Nissan's own planners. The following year, that figure climbed even higher, with 52,628 units sold in the American market alone. Over the first 4 model years, from 1970 through 1973, about 148,000 Datsun 240Zs found buyers in the United States. The scale of this response became impossible to ignore. Roughly 90% of all 240Zs built during these years were shipped to the United States, making America not just the car's primary market, but its proving ground. Dealers marked up prices above sticker, but buyers kept coming, drawn by a car that delivered more than the spec sheet promised. The 240Z was no longer an unknown from a distant factory. It was the car that Americans were willing to wait for, pay extra for, and recommend to their friends. Detroit's early dismissal, so confident in the showroom, now looked like an error, measured in tens of thousands of lost sales. The numbers told the story. The market was not just curious, it was convinced. The 240Z had crossed from outsider to sensation, and the pressure it put on American manufacturers was no longer theoretical. It was written in order books, sales ledgers, and the steady stream of cars rolling out of Japanese ports, almost all bound for United States roads. Inside the Hiratsuka plant, the pressure was relentless. As orders poured in from overseas, Nissan's assembly lines moved from cautious optimism to a full-scale industrial push. monthly production of the Z soared, reaching peaks above 11,000 cars, an output that dwarfed the original forecasts and strained every part of the operation. Managers restructured shifts, retooled equipment, and redirected resources to keep pace with the unbroken demand. The factory's rhythm changed. What began as a calculated gamble became a race against backlogs that refused to shrink. By the end of the early production run, global output stood between 165,000 and 168,000 units. Scarcity on dealer lots was no longer a sign of weak supply. It was the direct result of a car that sold faster than Nissan could build it. The 240Z's momentum forced the company to adapt, proving that its success was measured not just in sales, but in the scale of the response it demanded. The East African Safari Rally was where reputations went to die. In the early 1970s, this was the ultimate test for any car that claimed endurance. The rally's route slashed through Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, with drivers facing brutal heat, deep mud, rocks that could break axles, and river crossings that could swallow an engine whole. Most years, only a handful of the dozens of starters would finish. In 1971, the Datsun 240Z lined up at the start, an unproven newcomer against seasoned European machines built for punishment. By the end, Rauno Aaltonen and Tony Maggs steered their 240Z across the line first, clocking a total time of 10 hours, 57 minutes. The victory wasn't a fluke. The car endured everything the African landscape could throw at it: relentless washboard roads, choking dust, and temperatures that warped metal and shattered engines. 2 years later, the rally's reputation had only grown harsher. 89 teams started the 1973 Safari. Only 18 finished. Shekhar Mehta and Lofty Drews, driving another 240Z, won outright, outlasting rivals as much as outrunning them. The attrition rate neared 80%, but the Datsun survived and conquered. These weren't just wins, they were public verdicts. No magazine ad or sales pitch could match the authority of a car that finished first in the world's toughest rally, twice. The 240Z's victories on African soil silenced doubts about Japanese engineering. In the harshest conditions, the car proved its strength, and the old jokes about cheap imports no longer held. The Safari Rally had become the ultimate witness. The 240Z was real, and it was built to last. The aftermath of the 240Z's arrival forced a reckoning that stretched far beyond Nissan's own showrooms. For years, Made in Japan had been shorthand for disposable, second-rate cars, machines built for thrift, not for thrill. The 240Z shattered that image in plain sight. Its blend of style, speed, and unflinching durability put Japanese engineering on equal footing with the best from Detroit and Europe. Road tests and rally wins became more than headlines. They were evidence that Japanese cars could outperform and outlast established rivals. The old jokes about cheap imports faded as the 240Z proved itself on the road and in the harshest rally conditions. The impact did not go unnoticed at the top. Executives at Ford, Chevrolet, and even Ferrari began to speak publicly about a changed competitive landscape. Detroit's confidence had been shaken by a car they once considered irrelevant. Industry insiders admitted that the 240Z had redefined expectations, forcing a new respect for Japanese design and manufacturing. The car's runaway success opened the door for a wave of Japanese GT and performance models that would follow in its tire tracks. What began as a single car's gamble had become a turning point, a moment when the market's verdict could no longer be ignored. Today, Japanese engineering stands at the core of global automotive leadership, and Detroit rarely laughs at challengers sight unseen. The 240Z forced a reckoning. It was proof that innovation can come from anywhere, and that underestimating the outsider often means missing the next revolution. Thanks for watching.